Yo, what's really going on with 50 Cent? Did you know the rapper's iconic name isn't just some catchy nickname cooked up in a studio? Nah, fam, it's a stolen legacy, ripped straight from Brooklyn's most feared street killer. Yeah, you heard that right? While Curtis Jackson was busy dropping beats, the original 50 Cent was out there ruling the streets with violence. Scars and a body count that'd make your jaw drop. So how did this brutal OG's nickname end up on a platinum? Rapper? What secrets are lurking behind that shiny chain and those catchy hooks? Today, we're diving deep, like FBI investigation, deep into a story packed with violence, betrayal, and a name that carries weight heavier than any gold chain. Prepare yourselves for jaw-dropping revelations, shady connections, and enough street drama to fill a Netflix series. Could it be that the rapper 50 Cent owes his entire persona to a cold-blooded hustler who ruled Brooklyn with an iron fist? And what happens when the real 50 Cent's ghost starts haunting the rap game? Stick around because this is not your average backstory. This is the untold truth. Okay, trust me, you'll want to hear this before anyone else breaks it. Ready? Let's go. Before Curtis Jackson became the world-famous rapper known as 50 Cent, there was another man who carried that name on the streets of Brooklyn. A man whose reputation was soaked in blood, fear, and ruthless survival. Kelvin Martin was not just a nickname or a stage persona. He was the embodiment of terror during one of the darkest eras of New York City's history. The 1980s crack epidemic turned entire neighborhoods into war zones, and Kelvin was the kingpin who ruled with cold precision, like the polished image of Curtis Jackson. Kelvin lived a life where every day was a fight for survival, and every move could mean the difference between life and death. He wasn't interested in hiding behind masks or running from his crimes. Instead, he made sure everyone saw his face as he robbed them, as if to say, "This is who I am, and there is nothing you can do about it." His nickname, 50 Cent, was earned the hard way. Some say it was because he walked into a dice game with only 50 cents and left with $500. Others believe he was notorious for robbing people down to their last 50 cents. Regardless of the origin, the name stuck because it symbolized the fearless, take-no-prisoners approach he took to life and crime. Kelvin was barely 6 feet tall, but carried himself like a giant among men. A fact made all the more terrifying because of the scars that ran across his body from multiple gunshot wounds and stabbings, none of which had managed to take him down. He was known for carrying a Colt 45 and a .357 Magnum, always ready for a fight and rarely caught off guard. Operating primarily out of the Angelaw Houses and Walt Whitman projects on Myrtle Avenue, collectively known as the Fourth Green Project, Kelvin's influence stretched far and wide across Brooklyn's underworld. He was a master of the stick-up, robbing drug dealers, nightclub patrons, college students, and store owners alike. Refusing his offer of protection was a dangerous game because Kelvin did not tolerate defiance. His punishments were swift and brutal, ensuring that his name remained synonymous with fear and respect. Kelvin's lifestyle was a deadly dance, one where betrayal lurked behind every corner, and loyalty was often paid for in blood. Despite his reputation, Kelvin had ties to some of the earliest hip-hop legends, including Eric B. and Rakim, which added an ironic twist to his violent existence. While Kelvin ruled the streets with violence, those same streets produced some of the artists who would change music forever. Kelvin's criminal career was as storied as it was dangerous, with his life marked by violent encounters that left him scarred but never broken. He wore a bulletproof vest long before it became a fashion statement in rap culture, a necessity born from surviving countless assassination attempts. However, no amount of protection could save him from the ultimate betrayal. On a fateful night in 1987, Kelvin walked out of his girlfriend's project building without his guns or bulletproof vest, feeling safe among his crew, trusting a young member named Wimo. But that trust was shattered when Wimo shot him multiple times in the stairwell, delivering fatal wounds to his head, chest, and stomach. The betrayal was shocking. made even more so by the fact that Wymo claimed he was coerced by Kelvin's enemies who had threatened his family. The death of Kelvin Martin marked the end of an era for Brooklyn's streets, but the legacy of the name 50 Cent was far from over. Curtis Jackson emerged a decade later, adopting the name with full knowledge of the violent history behind it. For Curtis, the name was a perfect representation of his own street hustle and survival story, a tribute to a man who had lived by any means necessary. Yet Curtis's appropriation of the name was controversial. Many in the streets saw it as an act of disrespect or even theft of a dangerous legacy that Curtis could never fully embody. Critics questioned whether Curtis, a rapper and businessman, could live up to the violent reputation of the original 50 Cent. The reality is that Curtis's career was filled with its own brushes with violence, most notably surviving a shooting, where he was hit 9 times and almost died. That event only solidified his tough persona and blurred the lines between the rapper and the street legend. Adding layers to this complex story is the strange connection to Jam Master Jay, Curtis's mentor and hip-hop pioneer, who had a violent feud with Kelvin Martin back in the day that escalated to a shootout between their crews. Curtis worshipped Jam Master Jay and learned the craft of songwriting and music production from him, making the irony of these intertwined legacies all the more intense. Curtis Jackson's rise to fame was not just about music. It was a carefully crafted image that borrowed heavily from Kelvin's story of survival and ruthlessness. As Curtis climbed the charts with hit after hit, he demonstrated that he could claim the name and make it his own, blending street credibility with mainstream success in a way that few artists have managed. But the shadow of Kelvin Martin, the original 50 Cent, loomed large over Curtis's career, a constant reminder of a violent past that Curtis could never fully escape. The real 50 Cent story is one of brutal survival, betrayal, and raw power. A story that contrasts sharply with the polished celebrity image Curtis projects today. Yet both men share a name that carries weight and meaning beyond just a stage persona. Curtis's decision to adopt the name was not just a marketing move. It was an embrace of a dangerous legacy that few would dare to claim. The streets of Brooklyn never forget. And neither does the history behind the name 50 Cent. This is the untold truth that most people don't know. When they hear the name on the radio or see it in lights, Kelvin Martin was more than a man. He was a legend, and his story is a chilling reminder of the brutal reality that shaped hip-hop's early days and the man who would come to wear his name decades later. The question remains, did Curtis Jackson ever fully understand the weight of the name he took, or was it simply a convenient symbol for his rise to fame? Whatever the answer, the story of Kelvin Martin and the legacy of the original 50 Cent is a dark and fascinating chapter in the history of 50 Cent, and the history of Brooklyn and hip-hop that refuses to be forgotten. The story gets even more intense when you start digging into the shadowy world behind the name 50 Cent and what Curtis Jackson's rise to fame really meant for Brooklyn's streets and beyond. Sources close to the scene, and I mean the real streets, not some tabloid nonsense, have whispered about secret meetings, shady deals, and a complicated web of power plays that Curtis inherited along with the name. It turns out that adopting the 50 Cent persona was more than just a clever marketing strategy. It came with an invisible crown of expectations and enemies. The streets never forget, and those who once feared Kelvin Martin did not simply vanish when Curtis Jackson showed up with a microphone and a bulletproof vest. Investigative reports obtained by insiders reveal that Curtis's lavish spending on luxury cars, designer clothes, and even exotic animals was partially fueled by money tied to those old Brooklyn connections, some of which were far from legal. Leaked documents suggest that several of Curtis's early investors had direct links to criminal networks that once answered to the original 50 Cent's rule. And while the rapper made headlines for his business savvy and entrepreneurial success, behind the scenes there were whispers of corruption, backroom deals, and alliances that kept him safe from rivals who wanted to see him fall. Anonymous sources from Brooklyn's underground claim that Curtis's protection came from a coalition of old-school gangsters who saw in him a new kind of power player. Someone who could take the name 50 Cent and turn it into a symbol not just of fear, but of wealth and influence in the entertainment world. Public reactions to this narrative have been explosive. Fans who once idolized Curtis have split into factions, some applauding his ability to transcend his violent roots, and others accusing him of selling out and disrespecting the original legacy. Social media exploded with debates, memes, and conspiracy theories as users tried to untangle the complex truth. "You can't just take a man's name and wear it like a chain," wrote one user, while another defended Curtis as a modern-day survivor who took a difficult past and made it into a global brand. Meanwhile, some of Kelvin Martin's surviving family members have reportedly come forward sharing mixed feelings about Curtis's use of the name. Some expressed pride that the legacy lives on, even if in a very different form. Others see it as a painful reminder of a violent past they wished to forget. The controversy even spilled into the hip-hop community, with rappers and producers weighing in on whether Curtis deserved to carry the 50 Cent name. Certain veterans of the scene who knew Kelvin personally have openly challenged Curtis, claiming that he lacks the street credibility to claim that mantle, while others praise his hustle and business acumen, adding fuel to the fire. Investigative bloggers uncovered financial records showing Curtis's early earnings were funneled through a complex network of shell companies, some tied to individuals with murky pasts. This has led to rampant speculation about money laundering and hidden ties to criminal enterprises, although no official charges have ever been made. Leaked audio clips from private conversations also surfaced, in which Curtis can be heard discussing strategies to maintain his dominance not just in music but in the streets, hinting at deeper involvement than he publicly admits. A particularly explosive leaked message had Curtis warning associates that his rivals were plotting against him, emphasizing that this name is more than a brand, it's a battlefield. The public's fascination with this hidden side of 50 Cent has grown exponentially, leading to a surge in interest for documentaries, exposes, and underground interviews. Some media outlets have called it a case of criminal legacy meets corporate empire, while others dismiss it as urban legend and hype. But the truth is complicated. Curtis's meteoric rise and massive success cannot be separated from the shadow of Kelvin Martin's brutal past. The two lives intertwine like a double helix, twisting between violence and artistry, fear and fame. The lavish lifestyle Curtis enjoys today is, whether he admits it or not, built on the foundation laid by a man whose life was cut short by betrayal and bullets. Public sentiment remains divided. Some see Curtis as a self-made star who used a powerful name to climb out of poverty and violence and into superstardom. Others see him as someone exploiting a legacy he never earned, a performer who sanitized and packaged street violence for mass consumption. This debate only intensified when an anonymous former associate of Kelvin Martin came forward, claiming to possess never-before-heard stories about the real 50 Cent's dealings with drug lords, gang wars, and corrupt cops. According to this source, Kelvin's influence stretched far deeper than anyone imagined, with connections that rivaled even the most powerful criminal empires in the city. The revelations painted Kelvin as not just a violent, stick-up kid, but a master manipulator who could control entire networks with a glance or a gunshot. True, this makes Curtis Jackson's adoption of the name all the more audacious and raises the stakes on whether the rapper's fame comes with hidden dangers. Law enforcement insiders have also weighed in, with some suggesting that Curtis's rise might have been quietly monitored by federal agencies. Concerned about the overlap between entertainment and organized crime, rumors abound of secret investigations into Curtis's financial dealings and alleged ties to former gang members who once worked for Kelvin. Although nothing has been publicly confirmed, the mere existence of these rumors has added an air of menace to Curtis's public image, fueling speculation that the rapper's life might be at risk just as Kelvin's was decades before. The ongoing saga has made the 50 Cent name a lightning rod for controversy, conspiracy, and conflicting narratives. Whether Curtis Jackson is simply a talented artist who borrowed a legendary name or a figure deeply entangled in a criminal underworld remains a question that divides fans and critics alike. What cannot be denied is that the story behind 50 Cent is far more complicated and darker than most people realize. It is a story of violence, survival, betrayal, and transformation that challenges the way we think about fame, identity, and the blurred lines between reality and myth in the world of hip-hop. The drama surrounding Curtis Jackson and Kelvin Martin continues to captivate audiences around the world, reminding us that behind every name, there is a history waiting to be uncovered, sometimes darker than we ever imagined. The public waits with bated breath for the next chapter in this saga, whether it comes in the form of a tell-all interview, a documentary expose, or even legal battles that could expose secrets long buried in the shadows of Brooklyn streets. Whatever happens next, one thing is clear: the legacy of 50 Cent is not just about music or money. It is about power, respect, and the dangerous price of survival. The question remains: how far will Curtis Jackson go to protect the name he stole and the empire he built on the bones of a street legend? The fallout from Curtis Jackson's adoption of the 50 Cent name has been nothing short of seismic in both the music industry and the underworld circles that still remember Kelvin Martin's reign with a mixture of fear and reverence, and as Curtis's fame skyrocketed, so did the scrutiny, with rumors swirling about possible government investigations probing his connections and financial dealings. And while no official statements have ever been released, insiders whisper about ongoing federal inquiries examining the blurred lines between his entertainment empire and alleged criminal ties. And this has fueled a wildfire of speculation that the rapper's lavish lifestyle, once seen as a symbol of success and power, might be under threat from forces beyond the public eye. And adding to the drama, several figures within Curtis's inner circle have reportedly distanced themselves amidst growing pressure and concern over potential legal repercussions and financial instability. And while some of these departures are explained as typical industry shakeups, the timing has raised eyebrows and sent shockwaves through fan bases worldwide, and even some of Curtis's closest allies have been rumored to be cooperating with investigators, suggesting that cracks might be forming in the once unbreakable empire built around the 50 Cent brand. Meanwhile, public backlash has reached a boiling point as social media platforms overflow with heated debates, exposing a divided fan base that alternates between fierce loyalty and harsh criticism, with hashtags like Respect the Real 50 trending intermittently, and calls for Curtis to publicly address the legacy controversy growing louder by the day. And the pressure has spilled over into the corporate realm, where some business partners have expressed unease about being associated with the controversy, fearing damage to their brands and investor confidence, and these concerns have reportedly led to postponed projects and restructured deals as executives navigate the stormy waters of public relations and potential legal fallout. And in the music world, the ripple effects have sparked a renewed conversation about authenticity and appropriation within hip-hop culture, with critics questioning the ethics of capitalizing on a violent legacy, while others defend the creative reinvention of the name as a symbol of survival and success beyond the streets. But the most dramatic consequence has been the increased threat of violence surrounding Curtis himself, with unconfirmed reports of threats and intimidation attempts by rival factions who see the rapper's use of the 50 Cent name as a challenge to their own power. And some insiders believe that Curtis's close call with death during the 2000 shooting was just the beginning of a dangerous game that continues to this day, and the specter of Kelvin Martin's violent demise hangs heavy over Curtis's life. A grim reminder that the street rules he inherited can be as lethal as ever. And with that in mind, security measures around Curtis have reportedly been beefed up, including a discreet but formidable protection detail tasked with shielding him from both physical harm and unwanted attention. And rumors swirl that Curtis has considered stepping back from the spotlight temporarily to regroup and possibly renegotiate his position in a landscape that has become increasingly hostile and uncertain. But despite all the tension, Curtis continues to release music and maintain his public image as a self-made mogul and survivor, embracing the duality of his persona as both a pop culture icon and a man carrying a complicated legacy. While the controversy fuels headlines and debate, Curtis's ability to navigate this minefield speaks to a resilience that echoes the gritty determination of the original 50 Cent. Yet questions remain about how long this delicate balance can hold before the shadows of the past and the demands of the present collide in a way that could topple the entire empire. The story of Kelvin Martin's rise and fall, and Curtis Jackson's controversial claim to his name, serves as a cautionary tale about the cost of power and the complexities of identity in a world where the lines between legend and reality are dangerously blurred. And as the public watches and waits for the next explosive revelation or legal twist, one thing is undeniable: the legacy of 50 Cent is more than just a name. It is a symbol of survival, betrayal, ambition, and the dark underbelly of fame that refuses to be silenced, no matter how much glitter or gold it is dressed in. And it forces us to ask, what does it really mean to own a name? Is it the life you live, the history you carry, or the empire you build? Curtis Jackson took a name from the shadows of Brooklyn's violent past and transformed it into a global brand. But at what cost? And with whispers of investigations, estranged allies, and lurking threats, the next chapter in this saga may be more dangerous and dramatic than anything we have seen so far, as the final curtain has yet to fall on the story of 50 Cent, and the truth behind the name will continue to unravel in ways that will shock, divide, and captivate us all. So keep your eyes open, your ears peeled, and your judgments ready, because this tale of stolen identity, street legend, and musical empire is far from over. And if you think you've heard all there is to know about 50 Cent, think again, because the real story has only just begun. So what do you think? Did Curtis Jackson just cleverly borrow a legendary name? Or did he straight up steal a legacy soaked in blood and betrayal? Is 50 Cent just a brand now? Or does that name still carry the weight of Brooklyn's most feared street killer? We want to hear your thoughts. Don't hold back. Drop your hottest takes in the comments below. Who really owns that name? Curtis a genius for turning a violent past into a global empire? Or is he dancing on dangerous ground, risking everything for fame and fortune? Hit that like button if you're shook by this wild story, and share it with everyone who loves a juicy conspiracy. And hey, if you're here for the truth bombs and tea spills, make sure you subscribe and smash that notification bell so you don't miss the next deep dive into hip-hop's darkest secrets. We're just getting started unraveling this tangled web, and trust me, the next chapter will blow your mind. Until then, keep questioning everything, because with stories like this, nothing is ever what it seems. Peace out and stay woke.